right. My name is Derek. I'm with MiddleEasy.com. Today I'm being joined by the number 5 ranked flyweight contender in the world. She's fresh off a big win over Macy Barber in January, and she is one of the most positive people in all of combat sports. Please welcome Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on the show. Now, I really want to ask you something right off the bat. It's super important. You're a big anime fan. Have you been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender now that it's on Netflix?
Technically, that's American. It's not really anime.
Touche.
I tried to get into it. I watched like 15 episodes. I kind of lost interest in it, but all my friends are telling me that I need to like get by a certain point and then it'll pick up again. So now that it's on Netflix, I might give it another try.
Well, I definitely think it's worth it. Now, on to actual serious conversation. Like I said, you're fresh off that win over Macy Barber. You were a massive underdog heading into that fight. How did it feel when you finally got your hand raised after being, downplayed of your chances?
Man, I didn't feel like an underdog because I knew my own abilities and I was confident in myself. I know she's very dangerous. She TKO'd her last opponents, but it just felt like a relief to win. It always feels like a relief, in the UFC. I've made it. I got to keep winning my fights, so it was just awesome.
Right. Now, one of the big things that kind of came after the fight was obviously the knee injury that she suffered. You had her dad making comments to you and things like that. Were you aware how serious that injury was during the fight?
I could tell it was bothering her, but I knew she was still very dangerous, so I just fought on.
Some people have said that maybe you were a little easy on her after the knee injury kind of was revealed, that you kind of engaged in more grappling exchanges instead of standing up. Was that like a conscious decision, or were you just going with the flow of the fight?
So I believe that anybody can throw like a crazy punch and knock you out by accident, but I'm pretty sure you can't get armbarred by accident.
That's a good point.
For me, I know my grappling was better. I knew my grappling was better, so it was safer for me to be on the ground anyway. So, I never would target somebody's injury like that on purpose, but I was, conscious of it. I wanted to take advantage of her lack of mobility in the striking exchange. But again, if I could take her down and keep it down there, I knew I could control her.
Now, that being said, it must have been pretty frustrating to hear that her father kind of had those negative things to say about you after the fight. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel like he's a good father. All fathers are supposed to be biased and love their kids. I didn't really care. It was kind of just like prolonging the publicity of our fight, which is kind of cool, I guess. Made her and her father look bad. If Dana White had said that, then I would have been super bummed out. But it's like her, of course, he's going to be biased, so it was fine.
How big of a difference do you think it ended up making in the fight, having her knee injured like that?
No difference. I would have beaten her up anyway.
Fair enough. Now, I know you're expecting to fight Lauren Murphy in your next outing. How are the negotiations coming along for that fight?
I think it's official.
Okay. Do you have an official date?
Yes, June 20th.
June 20th? Does that mean it's going to be on Fight Island?
That's a great question.
Well, I appreciate
the liberty to answer that, especially since my contract says to be determined. So.
Fair enough. Are you excited if it is on Fight Island? Does that excite you to be a part of something like that?
That depends entirely on where this Fight Island is, okay? So there are already T-shirts that say Fight Island, but I've heard a rumor it's in Abu Dhabi. No, it's in England. No, it's like somewhere. So I feel like Dana White should start putting out red herrings all over the place, just so there's so many rumors nobody knows. If he really doesn't want anybody to know. So I don't really want to go to Abu Dhabi, but, they're paying me to go fight somebody, so I'll go wherever they say. It would be great if it was at the Apex, because I live like 20 minutes from there. So, just saying.
Now, how do you feel about competing during everything that's going on? Have you been able to train properly? Do you feel like you'll be, prepared to the fullest extent come July?
So, that's so crazy, man. Like, when the lockdown happened, I started going to my Muay Thai coach's garage, AJ Matthews, and then another training partner was going and training with him as well. So I was like, hey, Justin, we're all in contact with each other. Let's just train together every day. So I had the first part of my fight camp with my Muay Thai coach, my tall southpaw male friend, and then another girl from another gym who I made really good friends with. That was like my first part of my fight camp. Now I'm training more with JoJo and choice members of the team. So also a lot of strength conditioning with my trainer Lorenzo. So I've been training really hard, as much as I can. I feel really good. It's very bizarre. It's like the first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. Like, don't talk about quarantine training. Like, so, I've been training, but I can't talk about it because everyone was socially shaming me about leaving my apartment, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So to answer your question, it's been super weird. Good for me. I've really improved a lot just focusing on certain things like AJ's wanting to teach me, and also working with Neil Melanson a lot. Now switching it up a little bit again. So I'm going to be ready, and I'm excited to show off my new and improved skills that I've, done better at. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. Now, you had mentioned that you started working with Joanne Calderwood. That brings me to my next question, which is you guys are both, she's getting ready to fight for the title. If you win, you're probably right there in that conversation as well. Have you guys talked about what happens if you are both successful and the UFC offers you a title shot against her?
Man, everyone's asking me that. I have to fight Lauren. I have to beat her first. Joe, you have to fight Valentina first. So I'm really trying not to think about that because so many things have to happen for that to happen. I'm not looking forward to that if that were indeed the case. So I'm just trying to focus on Lauren Murphy.
Of course, you don't want to get ahead of yourself.
Exactly.
But you haven't had any sort of conversation about, dreaming about the potential of what might happen. Fair enough. Now, something else that you've mentioned recently is talking about having to deal with PTSD after going through fights that are a little hard. You mentioned it with the second Maya fight. You were so focused on getting the takedowns, it kind of created a mental block for you. How do you find yourself able to get past those mental blocks?
Good question. It's been really hard. Learning why it happened to me and improving can help me tell myself, okay, that's not going to happen again. Don't worry. So I went back and I looked at the fight, and, my coaches were like, okay, she's shorter than you, so you need to have a different game plan as opposed to a taller opponent. So you have to do this. I was like, okay. So I practiced that and I got better. And then I can tell myself, okay, so if I ever have to fight someone like her again, I'm not going to do that. It's okay. You're not going to repeat that nightmare, because that moment really sticks with me, moments.
Now,
like
sure, it was a little bit different when it comes to, I know you'd mentioned having trouble with body kicks as well. That's more of like a physical trauma that I would imagine. What's that?
Body kicks? Oh, body locks.
I thought you had said something about you had issues with getting over kicks too from a different fight. Was I misunderstanding?
No, locks. It was no kicks. It was locks. Body locks.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well then, never mind there. Sorry about that. I guess I misunderstood.
I couldn't hug her. I couldn't put my arms around her.
But you do feel like you've been able to get past that point and adjust your training methods accordingly?
Heck yes.
Heck yeah, awesome. Now, Conor McGregor was recently making headlines talking about his list of who the greatest fighters of all time are. And obviously, super subjective. Everybody has their own list. Who are your picks for the greatest fighters of all time?
The first person who comes to mind is Megumi Fuji, the Japanese female fighter. She
right.
Friggin' submits everybody. Come on, It's ridiculous. GSP, Anderson Silva, people like that. I guess Jon Jones.
Where do you stand as far as Jon Jones is concerned? I know a lot of people feel like he can't really be involved in that GOAT discussion with everything that's happened in terms of his PED failures. Where do you sit in that discussion?
I remember something Ronda Rousey once said. Oh yeah, she's awesome as well. I think she said something like she's not in the sport to be a role model. She's in the sport to fight and make a living. And I was like, okay, that's fair, I guess. So that actually, what she said actually made me think about him. Like, how can his skills as a fighter are different than his skills as a fighter are different than him as a person. So if you want to say, am I a fan of his? Like, no, but that's because I'm not a fan of what he's doing in his personal life. Is he a great fighter? Yes. So I'm just trying to stay away from the whole topic.
All right.
That issue, I think we need to consider, like, are these people being paid to be role models, even though they are role models? So I think there is a moral responsibility for them, since they are in the spotlight, to not do those
Martial arts is one of
things.
those complicated things, right? Where you have some people who consider themselves martial artists like yourself, and some people consider themselves fighters, and they're very different. Now, you have been fighting for a very long time under a wide variety of different promotions. How do you feel Dana White compares as a promoter and as a boss compared to, say, like a Scott Coker or some of the other promotions that you've worked for over the years?
I'm a huge fan of Dana White. I've always loved Dana White. You know, I think that he's a shrewd businessman. His organization has lasted for a long time. It's gotten super profitable. You know, the other guys are great too. Scott Coker's awesome. But I've always been, and I think I always will be, a huge fan of Dana White. You know, he loves putting on good fights. I think he's good to the fighters, and I know there's a lot of debate, but I love Dana White.
All right. Now, that being said, like I said, you've been competing for a while. We just saw Henry Cejudo retire on top. He had championship belt, decided to walk away. How do you see the end of your career panning out?
You know, I'm not really sure. I'm not really. I know that I'll stop fighting if I start noticing some issue with my brain. You know, I'm very careful about my brain, like whom I'm training with. They don't try to knock me out in practice. You know, if I get hit too hard and I have any like concussion symptoms, I like take a break, because I know I think that's gonna be the determining factor. You know, if I start having like big concussions or whatever. But I think I've been pretty good. I feel great. I have a good chin. I don't get knocked out in all my fights. You know, like some of the more veteran fighters tend to kind of go out that way. Maybe my grappling has had something to do with that. I don't have like stand-up brawls all the time. I feel like I'm getting stronger. I feel super healthy. I feel great. So I don't know. You know, I feel like I'm just continuing to go up in the rankings. Power level is rising. So why stop now?
Right. Now, you mentioned that you kind of pay attention to your body and listen to it during your training. How do you handle sparring? I know some fighters will not spar at all. Some fighters will spar a couple of times. Where do you sit in that?
We have live goes like every day. So we drill a move, and then maybe Coach John will say, "Okay, start in tight control, go!" You know, and then we just like go as like kind of hard to grapple or whatever. But I'd say like full sparring, starting stand-up takedowns, maybe twice a week or 3 times. You know, that's cool with me. When I do kickboxing, I wear headgear.
Right.
And when I do MMA, I don't wear headgear, but everyone on Team Syndicate is pretty good about controlling their power with the small gloves. Thank goodness, because I've been at gyms where they don't control their power. So you know, I have my training partners who I can trust to not hurt me. Like JoJo is super good. JoJo, she throws all this dangerous stuff at me when we spar, but it doesn't hurt me. It's really quite amazing. She like kneed me in the head the other day, but it was like, it like brushed my forehead quite gently and gracefully. I was like, I think I could have died there. But thanks. You know, they just showed me it was there. Like, she's amazing. I love training with JoJo. She's so good. But yeah, so it's important to have training partners who are good and controlled. You know, I spar like twice a week, hard. I'm good. I wear my cryo helmet. Cryo helmet is like an ice helmet that sponsors me, and I always wear it after sparring. It cools your brain down. It's good.
So is it kind of like a cryo chamber specifically centered around your head?
Let me show you.
Okay.
Right here in my freezer. And they'll love me for this little okay, so it's like this. There's ice packs inside, see? Like that.
You look spectacular. What does that do for you exactly? Does that bring down swelling, or what kind of benefits does that confer?
Well, if you think about it, if you get hit in the head a bunch of times, you know, your brain just took a bunch of impact, so it reduces any kind of swelling. It helps with like normal people's headaches, reduces concussion symptoms, just helps you cool down. My physical trainer Lorenzo says that something about the nervous system. It helps you relax before bed. Ice goes on the back of your neck. Like, it's amazing.
Awesome. Now, we had mentioned Henry Cejudo retired on top. Do you feel like he retired too early from the sport, or was that about the right time for him?
Man, everybody has their own motivations for that, so I can't really speak to it since I'm not him.
Do you think it's a genuine retirement? I know the UFC kicked him off the rankings and all that. Do you think he's done for good, or will he make a comeback?
I don't know. Fighters kind of
Right.
fight. Actually, I thought that Misha was going to come back, and then she was having another kid, so I guess she's not coming back. But who knows, right?
Yeah, nobody ever knows, right? You got all kinds of people. Like Dan Hardy, for example, is talking about coming back after dealing with that type of heart condition that he had. Do you have Dan Hardy?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's been talking about coming back. Would you be interested in seeing that?
Sure.
All right. Now I know that you word on the street is that you are working on another book. Is that correct?
Yes, my second memoirs book.
Well, tell us a little bit about it. How's that coming along?
So my first memoirs book was about my one-year exchange student years in Japan. And now my second one is about basically when I moved. So I graduated from college and I moved to Japan to work, and I lived there for 8 years. And then I got on The Ultimate Fighter and I moved back to the States. So this memoirs book is a collection of my stories about moving to Japan, finding a gym, training there, switching gyms. The earthquake happened in northern Japan. I lived through that.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
I had to evacuate my home.
Oh, man.
It was horrible.
Did you have any damages to your house or anything?
No, it was more like the damage was north, but we were afraid the radiation was going to blow over us.
Right. Gotcha. That sounds terrifying.
That happened, and then I wrote about my 2 Ultimate Fighter experiences. I have my journals, so I copied those. It's good. I wrote a lot during the lockdown because I just went to AJ's garage and then came home and wrote my book.
Definitely gives you some time to do things you don't normally get to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a expected date where the book will be finished?
I want to include this lockdown experience, and for that to happen, I need to have some hindsight. So It needs to pass, so maybe even by the end of the year.
Gotcha. Do you have anything else that you're working on right now? Any other projects?
You see that?
You play piano, huh?
No, but I'm learning. So I learned as a kid a little bit, and then I quit because I was bored of practicing. And I thought, man, someday when I get old and I can't fight, I want to learn the piano again. And then this lockdown happened. I was like, well, you never know what's gonna happen. So I might as well buy a keyboard now. So I'm learning to read notes. It's really exciting. So my mom plays. So,
how's that coming for you?
Good, I think. I'm still in the beginning. I'm trying to practice enough, learn how to read the notes. It's really pretty.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Music's a great tool to relax. So I'm glad that you find something like that. Now, I want to let you know I really appreciate your time. You have been a huge motivation to people. You are one of the most positive people in all of combat sports. It's really inspiring. So I appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us. Did you have any messages you wanted to give to your fans before I let you go?
Just thanks for being fans. Thanks for supporting me. Shout out to my team Syndicate, John Wood, AJ. Lorenzo, Mike Pyle, Neil, people behind me. Yeah, thank you. MMA is a individual sport, but it's kind of a team sport too. So smile and carry on.
All right. Well, thanks again, Roxanne. I really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back in action in July, perhaps on an island, perhaps in Vegas. No one knows. But thanks so much. You take care, okay?
Peace.
Bye.